Herodotus visited Egypt and described a building so extraordinary he said it surpassed the pyramids. 3,000 rooms, half above ground, half below. So vast that every palace and temple he'd ever seen could literally fit inside it. Ground-penetrating radar in 2008 detected a massive structure exactly where he said it was. And yet, nobody has excavated it. Welcome to Chronicle Unknown, where today we are opening an investigative file most channels haven't touched. We're looking at a site potentially housing the largest ancient structure ever built. It is one of the least known major mysteries in Egyptology, and it's hiding right under our feet. So let's look at the 3 rapid facts that crack this case wide open. To really wrap our heads around what we're dealing with here, we have to jump back to the 5th century BCE. The Greek historian Herodotus visited the Fayum region of Egypt, and, well, he was absolutely blown away. He recorded this awe in Book 2 of his histories, claiming this structure utterly surpassed the pyramids. No small claim, right? He described a sprawling, continuous building with 12 roofed courts, 6 facing north, 6 south, all wrapped up inside one massive outer wall. He actually claimed he personally walked through 1,500 upper rooms, just marveling at these endless stone corridors. But here's the catch. When he asked to see the 1,500 subterranean chambers, the Egyptian authorities flat out refused to let him in. Why? Because those lower levels housed the heavily guarded burial vaults of the kings who built the labyrinth, right alongside the highly secretive tombs of sacred crocodiles. He called the whole complex a creation greater than human. Just imagine being an ancient traveler, already knowing the mind-bending scale of the Great Pyramid at Giza, and standing before something that makes even that look kind of small. That is the sheer scale of the mystery we are unpacking today. Okay, so here's the core anomaly we're investigating. Fact 1. Historical consensus agrees this wasn't just some ancient myth or a traveler hyping things up. A structure of absolute immense scale definitely existed here, boasting up to 3,000 rooms. Fact 2. High-tech ground-penetrating radar deployed in 2008 detected a massive, undeniably artificial grid directly matching those ancient coordinates. And fact 3, which is honestly the most mind-boggling part of all this, despite this technological smoking gun, to this very day, not a single shovel of dirt has been moved to unearth that subterranean level. So where is this place? The site is located in the Fayum region at a spot called Hawara. Way back around 1820 BCE, Pharaoh Amenemhat III of the 12th Dynasty built a massive pyramid here. But it wasn't the pyramid itself that became legendary. It was the immense mortuary complex of chapels, courts, and winding paths built right next to it. Think about this timeline for a second. For over 1,500 years after his death, this pharaoh was worshipped as a god within this exact complex. It had such staggering grandeur and historical gravity that by late antiquity, it was widely considered to be one of the absolute wonders of the world. It wasn't just a building, guys. It was the epicenter of ancient faith and engineering. And that sense of absolute awe didn't stop with the Greeks. Centuries later, the Roman author Pliny described it as this bewildering maze of paths, roofed with vaults of polished stone, featuring entrances made of gleaming Parian marble, and these massive, imposing pillars of Aswan granite. But here's the coolest part. He noted the psychological engineering of the space. Certain halls were arranged so that if you threw open a massive stone door, it created this fearful, echoing noise of thunder, plunging you into sudden darkness. This wasn't just architecture. It was a sensory marvel explicitly designed to disorient, terrify, and just completely overwhelm anyone who dared to walk its halls. Now, you really have to notice the sheer contrast between that ancient myth and the modern reality. Today, all that remains of the pyramid of Amenemhat III is this highly eroded, vaguely pyramidal mountain of mud brick. Almost all of its original gleaming limestone facing was pillaged for other buildings centuries ago. So right now, this decaying, almost organic-looking hill is basically the only obvious surface marker left to show where the magnificent Hawara labyrinth is supposed to be hiding. If you were just walking across the surface today, there is no way you'd guess a lost wonder of the ancient world is sleeping right under the sand. Right, so let's jump ahead to the 19th century and see how this mystery builds. Sir Flinders Petrie, who was an incredibly meticulous and renowned archaeologist, conducted some massive surveys of Hawara. When Petrie and his team dug south of the pyramid, fully expecting to find those sprawling walls and vaulted ceilings the ancients raved about, they found exactly nothing of the sort. Instead, he uncovered a massive, perfectly flat bed of compacted sand, stone chips, and limestone shards. We're talking thousands of square feet, about 277,000 square feet to be precise. Looking at this seemingly devastated landscape, Petrie made a logical call for his time. He assessed that the labyrinth had simply been quarried away over the centuries, leaving nothing behind but this flat, leveled foundation bed. But here is where we get a monumental shift in archaeological theory. For well over a century, mainstream Egyptology entirely accepted Petrie's assumption. The labyrinth was gone, destroyed by ancient stone robbers, and that compacted layer of limestone was just its foundation. Case closed, right? Well, remember Herodotus? He explicitly stated there was an above-ground level and a massive underground level. So modern geophysicists started asking a radical, paradigm-shifting question. What if Petrie was only standing on the foundation of the destroyed above-ground level? What if that massive slab of compacted stone isn't a foundation at all, but is actually the impenetrable roof sealing a still existing, completely unexcavated underground labyrinth? Fast forward to 2008, the Mataha expedition set out to answer exactly that question, using very low-frequency electromagnetic surveys, basically highly advanced ground-penetrating radar, and the results were staggering. The radar mapped out highly conductive archaeological remains standing in stark contrast against the surrounding desert soil. Below the sand, completely underneath Petrie's so-called foundation, the radar detected a vast, undeniable grid of thick, vertical walls. They formed nearly closed rooms covering several hectares. This was it, the absolute smoking gun. Now, this scanning data wasn't just kept in-house. It was rigorously analyzed and handed over to the National Research Institute of Astronomy and Geophysics in Cairo. Their official conclusion gave this site the heavy investigative credibility it desperately needed. I'll read directly from their findings here. At a depth of 8 to 12 meters, there is a grid structure of gigantic size made of very high resistivity material like granite stone. They concluded definitively that there is a colossal archaeological feature below Petrie's foundation zone, which means that zone must now be reconsidered as the roof of the still existing labyrinth. Herodotus wasn't exaggerating. He was telling the truth. And if ground radar wasn't enough for you, modern space-based radar has completely backed this up from orbit. Using L-band and C-band synthetic aperture radar from satellites like Sentinel-1, researchers can essentially see straight through the Earth. Because dry desert sand has a very low dielectric constant, these specific radar frequencies can penetrate deep beneath the dunes and bounce off dense, buried materials. Independent researchers looking at these composite images identified massive rectangular anomalies directly south of the pyramid. Through complex cross-sensor analysis, they proved these deep radar returns are completely uncorrelated with any visible surface terrain. There is absolutely, undeniably, an enormous, beautifully structured anomaly resting deep beneath Hawara. Okay, so you might be yelling at your screen right now. We have the historical accounts. We have the ground radar. We have the space-based satellite imagery. So why on earth hasn't a massive excavation happened? Well, this brings us to arguably the most frustrating part of this explainer. The site is currently plagued by severe, almost insurmountable environmental roadblocks. The primary culprit is a medieval canal known as the Abd al-Wabi, which was literally dug directly across the Hawara site centuries ago. Because of this, the local water table has risen drastically. The known entrance to Amenemhat's pyramid is currently flooded under 6 meters of stagnant water. Add in the constant agricultural irrigation runoff from nearby farms, and the fact that the ancient mud brick foundations are highly unstable, and you've got a perfect storm. Digging straight down from the top right now is considered incredibly dangerous, if not entirely impossible. You can actually see the problem clear as day from above. The dark line of the Abd al-Wabi Canal slices right through the desert, directly across the ancient Hawara complex. When this canal was roughly dug sometime before the 13th century, the builders just brutally blasted through mud brick settlements, ancient debris, and limestone bedrock without a second thought. Today, it dumps a constant heavy flow of water directly into the surrounding water table. This continuous seepage keeps whatever is left of those subterranean labyrinth levels dangerously submerged. It's effectively trapping the entire structure in a flooded, muddy tomb. So, as we open this file, we are left staring at 3 massive, critical questions that researchers are desperately trying to answer. First, what is the exact condition down there? Is the massive underground structure completely flooded, with its intricate carvings and granite columns just silently decaying in the dark water? Second, access. Some researchers have suggested that since the canal is already dug incredibly deep below the original ground level, future excavators could potentially start from the side of the canal and dig laterally into the labyrinth. This would completely avoid a catastrophic top-down collapse. And third, the ultimate secret. If Herodotus was stopped from going down there over 2,000 years ago, does it mean those lower levels still hold the completely untouched burials of the original kings and those legendary mummified sacred crocodiles? This is where the file stays open, waiting for the future of archaeology to finally catch up with space-based radar and ancient history. We want to hear your theories as we close this explainer for Chronicle Unknown. The evidence is literally right there. The structure is waiting. If the Hawara Labyrinth is finally excavated, what do you think will be found in the underground chambers? Drop your thoughts, and as always, keep questioning the unknown.